What's up, everybody? It's Chris. Let me know once you get on, if you can hear and see us okay, and then we will get started. In the meantime, I'm just going to try to drum up some extra eyeballs for us.
Yeah, I'm sharing it right now.
So thousands about to roll in.
I don't know. I'm actually, ironically, I am really not even on social media right now. So let's see how that plays out. I've been taking about a 2 weeks in. So the only thing I'm doing
for any particular reason, or?
Yeah, honestly, I felt like it was sort of affecting my mental health a little bit, to be honest. It was just too much. It was a barrage of just too much bad information for me. So
I definitely get what you're saying. I've unfollowed a lot of folks for that very reason.
And
or at least paused.
I know, what you're saying in terms of it being a people problem is definitely the case. But even if it wasn't, I mean, it's just the news alone is just, it's so much of it and it's happening. It's just too much focus on it all the time. And it's like, so even if you start to get your mind off of some of the crap that's going on around us, it's like, it just weighs on you, man, because it's just always there. If you turn on TV, if you open your phone or whatever else. So I was like, I don't really need this much of this. I'll just go find news a couple times a day.
Yep.
Make sure I'm up to date, but not wallow in it, right? So.
Right. Kumar says, "How are you, Chris? I'm doing well, thank you." Charlene says, "Can see and hear just fine. Excellent." Jim says, "Hi, Chris and Ron." What's up, Jim? Efrain says, "We're here, Chris. Welcome aboard." Ross says, "Hey, Chris, how's it going?" Good. Hector says, "What's up, Chris?" What's up, Hector? So normally when I have somebody on, the first thing I do is have them introduce themselves and tell their story. But I think in this case, I think it would be helpful if I tell a little bit about how I know Ron, and then he can kind of go into his thing and we'll go from there. As many of you know, I started internet marketing via affiliate marketing when I wanted to make a little bit of extra cash. And I didn't even really know that SEO was what I was doing. I just wanted to do affiliate marketing because I heard that was where the money was at the time. Initially what I did was I set up an Amazon/AdSense affiliate site for cord cutters or people that wanted to get rid of cable. And I did very, very well with it. And one of the things I had social media for all of it. And I had a Twitter account for it where I would post, whatever I posted that day or whatever update I found or whatever. And around that time, this was like 2014, I think, I got a message from somebody on there who owned a streaming service and, asked me would I like to look at it and maybe review it. And I did. And we got to know each other pretty well from that time. And we've both grown tremendously since then and gone in different directions. But that first person here was Ron, who is joining us today. And it's just amazing to me that one little get rid of cable site that has launched so many great things for me, including relationships like this and literally everything else I've done in the last few years. And if I hadn't used like get rid of cable as a hashtag or something, like we wouldn't be here today at this point. So that was kind of how I met Ron, and I will let Ron introduce himself and tell a little bit about what he does now and go from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
It's awesome. It's awesome when you think back about that, not only from your perspective, but from my perspective, kind of doing things that don't scale, which is, when you're growing, when you're first starting out, you want to do anything to get eyeballs, right? And so when you talk about things that don't scale, like reaching out to websites like that individually and trying to beg them to get coverage on there, it's something that is, you can't do forever, but that it certainly did pay dividends for me too. So anyway, I'm Ron Valderrama, and I founded a company a while back called Stream Now TV, as well as Stream Now Pro, which is a premium version of the same thing. It is a streaming network for independent media, TV shows, films, etc. And speaking of things that don't scale or things that you have to do to grow your company, we actually about 2 years ago, spun out sort of a marketing arm of that as well, because StreamNow was completely bootstrapped, no investors or anything else. Pretty much built it, learned how to build it myself, outsourced a lot, but people started asking me sort of how I was growing it and all these, weird little hacks and dumb things that I do. And I was helping them. And I decided to eventually just start charging for that because I was like, I'm starting to do this more and more. I might as well make some money off of it. So we spun off and started StreamNow Creative as well. And in many ways, that kind of shot up at a higher velocity. It's like it has a higher velocity of growth, but a lower ceiling of overall growth. But it's been awesome as well. So
great. And that was completely unintended, right? Like you didn't intend to open a marketing arm of it. It just there was a need, and you've had a way to fulfill it. Is that, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, it actually, like I said, it started off just by a few people asking about like social media. In fact, I think the first couple times you and I talked, you were asking me about social media, and how I was growing my following and all that other stuff, and which I should probably be asking you questions about that now, though. But at the time, it was relevant to you. But, so it started off with little things like that. And then, as StreamNow, started, on mobile apps and Roku TV and stuff like that, then I started getting questions about that type of stuff, the technical aspects and, some of like the commercials and stuff that we were running. People were asking about the video part. And so that to me is all kind of culminates into marketing, whether it's the dev side or the creative side or whatever else. And so that's really how it started, is like the video part. People just wanted like little ads. And I was like, I can do that. I'll charge you for that. I'll make you a video. And it just kind of, it almost has gotten to a point where it's more than I want to handle. So
one of the things that always interested me is that I would see you make a post about how do you write, I don't know code well enough to give the exact example, but you would say, how do you, and I'm trying to do this code thing for StreamNow and I can't figure it out. The point of that is that you were doing a lot of your own coding, and that just blew me away, that you had the time to run the business, and not the time, but you were running the business and writing the code and stuff. So how did you or first of all, what's the advantage of trying to do that yourself? And how did you balance all of that?
Yeah, well, so I had like a pretty serious corporate job, as you might remember, but the viewers probably don't know. I had a really good job. And my wife said I could start. I just always wanted to start and stuff, and I get ideas and I'm like, why can't I just do that, right? So she said I could pretty much start any business I want or do anything I want, but it can't. She's like, we can't. We're too deep now for you to affect the lifestyle that we have. So as long as you're not not putting us in the poorhouse or spending all our money on it, you can do whatever you want. In a lot of ways, it's better than me having like a bad golf habit or whatever else, right? So that was really it. Is that it was sort of by necessity that I either had to get investors or I could do it myself. And I started to look at investors, and I realized for me, and I should say this, I do want investors. I've never taken investment money of any kind. I do want investors, but I did find really quickly that they're kind of skeezy, and they can really mess with you. They can mess with your business, your mission, and your vision, and all that stuff. So, as I talked to some and even entertained some investors, I realized that road needed to be a very specific individual that I just haven't found yet. And so in the meantime, it's either you don't do it or you figure out how to build it yourself. And, I've had conversations with people from like in Hollywood and stuff who are with, the big companies and stuff. And they're like, well, you really need to hire a contact person or a content person for all the licensing deals and getting on new films and stuff like that. And they're like, that's a full-time job. You need to hire somebody for that. And, or I need to hire a CTO or something like that. I'm like, look, guys, you understand, like, I would love to do that stuff, but I just can't. But the upside is that, I'm not the best coder and I'm not the best film producer. I'm not the best really at any of those things. I will always get it done. But as it's grown, and I have been able to bring other people on to take on some of the roles, thankfully, I understand that part, every part of the business so well that, it helps to run a company when you understand each facet of the company.
Yeah, you can inspect what you expect.
You can inspect what you expect, exactly. So, like for me, for instance, one example of that is like I'm not a 9-to-5 kind of guy, so I don't want somebody else to be a 9-to-5 kind of guy or gal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's whenever I start working with somebody, I'm like, I don't even care when you work. You can work from 3 to whatever. These are sort of the expectations on when we have deadlines and time. When we expect this this rollout or whatever else. And so, just knowing that how I would do it helps me understand the timeline, even of when, make sure nobody's slacking, even, outside of just quality of work. Instead of them saying it's going to take 6 weeks, I'll be like, well, 6 weeks be talking about? It takes 6 weeks. I can do that in 2 weeks, So it's been really helpful in that respect for sure.
And you do this full time now, right?
Yeah. So, it launched in I think 2014 or 2014, summer of 2014. And I pretty much had to build it up from that point until the end of 2018. And so on January 1st, 2019 is when I quit the full-time job. And it was kind of a gamble because, I mentioned my wife's pretty risk adverse and all that stuff, but it was kind of a gamble. But I saw that I was at a point where I couldn't do anymore to grow it from where I was, right? Because I was focusing on a full-time job. So I got to the point where I was like, if I could just do more of what I'm doing, I think I could do it. So there's a little bit of a gap in terms of when I wasn't quite making enough to quit my job and still not miss a beat, so to speak. But I could see that if I could just do more of what I was doing, I could get there. So that was a crazy time because there were some pretty lean months when I first went out, and I'm the sole breadwinner in my family, so it's kind of a little bit added pressure of when there's a soccer tournament out of town and you got to pay for it. And hell, there's a few times where I was like, I don't know how we're going to pay for groceries. A couple of times last year, but it took until probably about August of last year to get to the point where okay, yep, we're doing it. We're making, some months I was making more than I was making in my corporate job. So
that's amazing. I remember making that same decision for myself, and I also didn't have quite enough to replace my current income. I kind of did, but it was unreliable, and it just takes nerves of steel for me, even at that point. And you have what, 2 children and a family. Yeah. So that's very commendable and very courageous, and it could easily have gone the other way, I imagine. So
yeah, it could have.
But
they supported me, though. I will say the family was pretty damn supportive of the idea by the time I made that decision. I think even my wife and even my kids really kind of understood that it's not a gamble necessarily, because I could always go back to doing what I was doing or get another job.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I built it enough to where I did know that if I could stay steady on these 13 to 15 hour days and just pound it out really hard initially, I could get there. I just need more time. And so it was a gamble, but it was kind of a calculated gamble to be, full disclosure at that point.
How do you, you have a young family, how do you balance those long days that running a business like this requires with still making sure they're attended to and taken care of? Not that they need, you know what I mean? Just enough attention.
I mean, yeah, you don't need to I don't need to change diapers or anything, but you do need to take care of your family. And that goes beyond just paying for stuff. It's parenting, it's raising them, right? You want them to be good people, especially today. Gosh, there's so many terrible people out there. It's if I could just raise some good kids. I believe the children are our future. So yeah, that. I will say though, a lot of times, I work from home. And so, there's a lot of times where I can just take a break and go hang out. My son and my daughter, we all just got these electric skateboards. So I'll take a break sometimes and go take an electric skateboard ride or whatever. And one of my other businesses I didn't mention is actually a private school. And so my kids attend the private school, obviously.
Interesting.
And I sort of run that along with my wife. And most of the time, I actually have an office there that I office out of. So, like, we are way tighter now than when I had to leave and go to, out of town for a week, or, spend all those hours in an office or whatever.
Right.
We're actually, they probably are more well taken care of now than before then. So.
That's excellent. Like, I see a lot of people, like my partner Jim balances that really well. He works from home too, and like does kind of literally as you were talking, I was like, Jim does that, Jim does that, Jim does that. And so I just admire it, because like I have 2 cats and I can barely take care of the 3 of us. I really admire people that are able to balance that, because I just don't know how you do it. Like I don't have a relationship either. So,
dude, when I was working in a full-time job, I would get up and work from like 4 a.m., 4:30 a.m. until I went to the office. Mm-hmm. I'd get home, and I would spend a little bit of time, and then I'd hit it again after everybody's sort of in bed. I'd go back to the building, and so during that time, that's when it was really hard to balance everything, because on top of it, I was going to a full-time job, so it was way harder to balance that stuff. And in fact, I used to, before I quit my job, I used to actually schedule time with my family. So like I would put it on my calendar and say, okay, we're going to spend a half hour playing Legos or something like that.
Wow.
and then, so that way I guarantee that I'm hitting that, but not going over on it, and not keeping the expectations in line. So it's way easier to do it actually now than it was, 2 years ago. So.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, one thing that I know that you'll unequivocally agree on, and I think it's important that we talk about this, is that Adidas is better than Nike, right?
Oh, no. You got my daughter believing that Adidas crap, though, man. She won't wear Nikes. But
this is kind of a running inside joke between us. We're both big sneakerheads, and Ron's a big Nike guy. I prefer Adidas, so it's always a running gag.
He's always calling my shoes trash. I will say, in terms of another thing, I will say, I know you're a wrestling fan, and I'm always working right next to the Rock here for my inspiration. I want a little minifigure.
Awesome. It electrifies.
People's elbow, people's eyebrow. So what else going on, man?
So one thing I liked about the way that you have marketed is that you've always found very unique traffic sources to grow your business. For example, I remember when StumbleUpon went away, you were really bummed because they were huge for you. I don't know too many other people that can do that. And I'm wondering how you've gone about that, how you found unique ways to market yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at like sort of the industry averages for like advertising on Facebook, which I do advertise, so it's not like it's only that, but if you kind of look at that, it's, they say the average like actual link click to get through is like $1.71 or something like that, right? When you across all industries, so some certain industries are lower, all that stuff. But if you just kind of look at it as $1, let's just call it even $1, like it's really expensive right? to get people to click through on Google Ads or whatever else. And so, so again, for me, it was more of a back against the wall. I've got to find stuff. So it was, reaching out to people like you and with your website initially, but you can also just, all this information's out there. I think that's the most interesting thing about really anything right now is like, nothing is really all that difficult if you're just willing to take the time to learn it. Mm-hmm. And so, for me, that's what I would do is, no matter if it's for growth, I would look around and figure out how to grow it. And I'd find things like StumbleUpon or Quora for now, like is bigger than that now. So, I get thousands of website hits from that. So if you think about thousands, that's like literally saving thousands of dollars a month in advertising. And then if you put some advertising on top of it, you're really doing something. So
it's still interesting to me though that I remember you used StumbleUpon and you used Twitter and some other
Reddit was huge.
Reddit I don't want to say obscure because obviously Reddit's not obscure, but unconventional traffic
Yeah.
sources.
Well, yeah, I think people know what Reddit is, but they think of it as things that get screenshotted to, Twitter or something like that. So they don't. I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about Reddit as an example. But I mean, I've gotten, there's been times where I've gotten like 30 or 40,000 hits off of a Reddit post in a 24-hour period. So, like, again, going back to that advertising analogy, if it was even $1 per click through that you're spending on that, that's basically $30,000 or $40,000 worth of value. And if you're trying to do this bootstrapped, if you're trying to build something bootstrapped, you don't have any other choice. You're either gonna effing do this or you're not gonna do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if you're gonna do it, go out and freaking do it, man. Go find an answer and put it out there, So, because it's all out there, and you do see, I don't know, I can't remember the founder's name of Pinterest is, but when Pinterest first started, his thing that doesn't scale, like when I mentioned things that don't scale up, like, as a company, you can't just rely on Reddit for your stuff, right? Like Netflix can't just rely on Reddit for traffic. Maybe they could now, but saying like it's so when you're doing things that don't scale, like I think of this story that I heard about the Pinterest founder who would go around to all the Apple stores and go around to every device and put on Pinterest on the web browser, so when somebody opened it up, they would see Pinterest. It's
That's smart. I never heard that before. That's awesome.
Like you can't. That's not how you scale a company necessarily, but that's how you get like those 100 people that will run through walls for your product.
Yeah.
And that's how you build a company, right? Is you find these people who will run through walls for your product and rely on that, that net promoter score and all that stuff to actually scale the biz. So
awesome. So what did you?
So I'm a big believer in that.
What did you replace Stumble Upon with?
Quora has actually been pretty good as an alternative to that. The people from Stumble Upon started a new company called Mix, which I haven't really used. I haven't really gotten the same vibe from it. So but Reddit again is something that's very strong as well. Like probably, Reddit has always probably been the strongest one of those like little,
Yeah, actually on that Get Rid of Cable site, I would share stuff to Reddit and get a lot of traffic. It was kind of garbage traffic, to be honest, most of it, but it was pretty good until the people there, you have to be very, very specific with what you share because they're very.
It's interesting. We should, or you should, or I should. One of us should do a sort of how-to for Reddit because you're right. It's very touchy. Like they don't want spam, so you have to really disguise what you're doing as from a promotional standpoint.
And they are not shy on letting you know if they don't like you, basically.
Well, I was talking to I'm producing a film right now, and so we do these production calls at 1 Central every day, right? And we were talking about some of these things, and somebody brought up Reddit, and so I started going into all the stuff that you actually kind of need to do to actually do that successfully, right? So you don't get your domain banned or get your stuff removed and all that other stuff. And so it led into this whole marketing conversation as a whole. And like, gosh, that sounds like a full-time job. I was like, yeah, that's why marketing's expensive because it's not like, for stuff like that, there's no shortcuts, right? For posting stuff on a 10-to-1 ratio on Reddit, right? There's no shortcuts. You have to just do it. It is not, it's tedious and it's a pain in the ass, but it works. So.
And not everything can be outsourced or automated. And, I say that owning a company that benefits from outsourcing, that you just can't outsource or automate everything. And some people I'm going to go on a bit of a rant here, but some people get into marketing and don't really want to do marketing. They're way too lazy for it. Like for example, one time in the Superstar SEO group, and I feel bad. If the dude is watching, forgive me for this, but there was this guy who said, I'm looking to start a digital marketing agency. And I need someone that can handle SEO, someone that can handle email marketing, someone that can handle Facebook ads, and also a salesperson. I'm thinking, what the hell are you going to do? Like, you want to basically collect money and pass work to other people. You don't even want to be the person doing the selling.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, whatever, I have a white label SEO service. So I sent them a link to it and explained how it worked. He's like, is that monthly or one time? I'm like, come on, man. You have no business getting into this business. And a lot of people think of it that way. Like, you can just do it. And it's just, I'm going to start an agency. And I blame, all the people that sell, the Sam Ovens of the world that sell that it's that easy to start in something. But you're absolutely right. You can't, there's no shortcut. You have to do the work, or at least understand the work and do it a little bit yourself to the point where you can hire someone. But you can't just get into a business and then want to pass the business off to somebody else. Like, what's the point?
I hear you. I mean, I'll tell you, in a different sort of lane there, but the same thing is, I do a lot of these like strategy sessions with startups and stuff. And, I can't tell you how many of them say, I've got this great idea. They're coming from healthcare or something like that. I've got this great healthcare app idea. And I'm looking to, I'm raising money. I think I'm gonna be able to raise like $75,000 or $100,000, whatever. You can take whatever number you want, because I've heard this on a number of occasions. But and they talk about how they're talking to some app, developer agency or whatever, and so they're gonna spend like $125,000 on an app to build this thing out. And I'm like, dude, you can't. Like, you can outsource your stuff, but you can't. Like, what happens, like right now, I'm having to relaunch the Stream Now Pro app because, Apple's made changes and there's a deadline. It's the end of this month to get it resubmitted, or my app's not going to be in the store. So like, a year or two from now, when you've spent $125,000 and your business hasn't scaled to where you have an extra $125,000, like, what are you going to have to do when somebody has to basically rebuild the whole app once there's an OS update or something like that? Like, you've got to, I mean, shit, dude, just like, if you're going to do that, spend $75,000 out of that 125 or 150, hire a tech person to be in-house at least, right? So like it just drives me crazy how they have this idea, and their ideas are worthless, right? We know that. Ideas are just ideas. Like, it's execution.
So, yeah, and like, you also have to, like, a lot of people get so married to their own idea that they don't see if there's a market for it first. Like, and I think that might be what you're kind of talking about, is like they have this great idea and they love it so much, but it's never occurred to them to see if anybody else would be willing to spend money for it, and they go and sink their life savings into it. And I feel sorry for people like that on some level, because they really do want to do something great, but they haven't taken the time to see if anybody else cares. So you have to. I don't want to say that marketing is the most important thing, but you have to do market research before you invest your life savings into something that.
It's big. It's important.
I guess, for lack of a better word. The
business plan, which, the business plan or your projections, they all kind of are, hardly accurate ever anyway. But it is worth doing the exercise of what needs to happen. In fact, there's a book called The E-Myth that's like from the 80s. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that book. Like, if anybody's out there that's going to start a business, like, just go read that book. And it's been updated since like 85 when it was first put out, so it's more relevant to today or whatever.
Right.
But man, like that's exactly the blueprint that you need to do, right? You need to have that plan in place. You need to do these things yourself, usually, at least for some part of the time. Do like every role yourself and lay out a plan that people can't mess up, right? You put out that process that's almost like a checklist, and it works, and if as long as they do all those things, it will work, and they'll be successful, and you'll be successful. And, so.
Well, let me ask you this: what attracted you to why Stream Now? Like, of all the great ideas out there, what made you come up with that? Do you have a background in film and production, or what?
No, yeah. So I've worked in healthcare finance and revenue cycle management, and a few years before Stream Now, a friend of mine was. Wanted to start a company, and he asked me to get involved, and I love business, so I was like, yeah, let's go. And so we started building it, and he wound up being pretty self-destructive, and it wound up being really messy, actually. But in that time, I wound up through that company wound up connecting with two filmmakers. Michael Campo, who he and I run Apostle Media together, which is sort of a storytelling marketing agency. So it's very focused on it's very focused on content. But anyway, so he and I run that together today, and but he had asked me, come work in film with me. Like, let's do a project. And I was like, I don't know anything about that, dude. Like, I'm not a director. I've never done anything. I've never been a producer or an actor or whatever. And then I wound up connecting with another filmmaker named Eric Vale, who this is sort of just a weird fact, but he is the voice of Trunks on Dragon Ball Z, if you've ever seen that
nice.
show. So he's got like a kind of a crazy, like, weird following. Like, I've been to like conventions with him and stuff where like he's like it's like Elvis is in the building or something. But let me get this notification on my phone. So anyway, he said the same thing. Like, let's do something. I'm like, I don't know anything. And so Michael wound up coming back to me, and he had a film on Netflix. And so we had this idea to turn it into a series, a docu-series. And so we did that, and we pitched it to a number of companies, and we really didn't do very well. We made it far enough to have very legit, like, high up meetings with these companies, but we sucked. Yeah, we blew it. And I have some very specific reasons why I think that happened now, looking back, but that's not really the point. The point was I came away from that thinking, well, shit, I just got into this business. And they're already telling me I can't even be in it, basically. So I was like, screw it. I'm gonna build my own platform, and then I can put whatever I want on there. I can start making stuff, and there wasn't.
I didn't know that. I really love that. That, like, you tried and then you hit an obstacle and you didn't quit, and you basically turned that to your advantage. You were like, well, fuck them. Who are they? Pardon my language, but fuck them. Who are they to tell me I'm not allowed to do this?
I know. It wasn't just one. I mean, we got kicked out of the finest establishments in the biz, cable networks and, major streaming and all that stuff. And so, we were definitely did not have what it took. But that's okay, because to your point, it did force me to do stuff, because I just knew there was other people, like, I knew there was other people that were probably more talented than I am that couldn't even get the meeting that I got.
Right.
So it's like, if I can just break those barriers down. So that's how I kind of started. Is like, can I be sort of like, I know you're not a sports fan, but if you kind of equate it to like AAA baseball, like almost the major leagues of baseball. If I could turn Stream Now into like the AAA almost HBO type of stuff, before they get there, it'd be pretty cool. And I've seen that. Like, I was on a streaming network, like a pretty major streaming network. I won't mention the name, but like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten on to big cable network, big streaming network, but on their streaming versions of things where you can actually just video on demand it. I've seen either people I've worked with or actual content. Like the one I was on the other day, I saw 2 titles that are currently on Stream Now that are on this major thing. So I was like, it's kind of cool. Like, it sucks. It sucks that I'm not the only one with that content anymore, but it's kind of cool to see that they're making it. And I've actually even helped a couple of people get licensed, pretty big licensing deals and stuff. So
you were kind of like the incubator for them to some degree.
Yeah, and I get something out of it. I get, it does pay my bills. It is a business. But I think in a lot of ways I've given more than I've gotten from it, and I like that. Mm-hmm. It's a good rule.
Yeah, it may sound like hippy dippy, but I think that's really, really key to being successful in business, is giving more than you get. Like, I mean, I don't get anything really out of what we're doing right now, but every time I do something like this, it ends up coming back to me in some way. And I know that's like esoteric nonsense, but it's absolutely true.
No, I mean, it's literally, it is tangible, even though it's just not tangible right now. Like, it will come back. Like, the network that you're building, the things you learn, maybe like that I might learn on this call with you or whatever. And it's like, it comes back in tangible ways.
Yeah.
It just does. It flat out does. And I've seen it happen over and over again. So
let's see if anybody has any questions for Ron, go ahead and drop those in. Let me see what we've got so far.
You'll have to read it for me.
Oh, no problem. C-Note says, did I miss a lot? No, I mean, you came on like a half hour ago, so no, not really. There's a link to Stream Now Pro from Chris. Thank you, Chris. That's me. Craig says, hey, y'all.
What's up, Craig?
Craig. Jim, who I was talking about before, says, Ron, we live the same life. You really do. Like, as Ron was talking and as I've talked to him, you know, as we're setting this up, I was like, man, you guys really have a very similar experience, you know?
Blessed and cursed. And so is that an Italian last name too?
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, you know, there you go. That's in common too.
Is buying targeted push traffic for startups application fruitful? I would not think so. Charlene says, Michael Gerber rocks. eMyth Revisited is the updated version.
Oh, that's a great one.
There you go.
That is it. You know what I love about that book too? I'm just going to pause before you keep clicking through.
Go for it.
I love how that book almost reads like a novel at times. It goes back and forth. It's a very entertaining read outside of it being educational, because when they go to the example part of things, it really kind of reads like a story with a character and all that other stuff. So anyway, don't get me started with this book. I'm telling you.
That's all right. So if somebody was wanting to start a startup, what advice would you give them? Like, would you tell them not to do it? Would you tell them what to focus on? Like, what do they need to have? What would your blueprint?
There's a lot of things I would say. So I think the first thing I would kind of ask, and I do ask like probably weekly, 2 or 3 times a week when I'm talking to startups, is kind of, first of all, just why are you doing this? You know, and I mean, I can't say this enough. Like, if your reasoning for doing this is not sound and really right, that you believe in it so much that you can't like stop thinking about it, and not the results of it, but it itself, not the results of it being successful or whatever else. Like, it's hard and you're going to get your ass kicked. And if you don't, you know, most of the time what I see is the money doesn't start rolling in by like month 9 or something like that. It's not hitting the metrics that they thought it was going to hit in their business plan. And so they wind up folding, not necessarily because they're out of money, but because they're like, why am I doing this? This is too hard for what I'm getting out of it. And I'm like, so that right there is like, if you would do this, if you never got paid anything, then that's the business you want to be in. Like, if you wouldn't do it because you just love doing it or like doing it at least, like, it's just not worth doing, because at the first real sniffs of failure, which is going to be most of it, unfortunately, it's almost all failure. It's like that. It's like golf for me. Is like I would go play golf and I suck at golf. And I don't even really like it that much, but you know, in the right setting and everything, I'll go do that. And you know, but I'd go out there and I would just hack it all over the place, and then I would get one solid smack on the ball, and it was awesome. The sound it makes, and you see it flying. It's like, okay, that'll keep me going. Like, I'll finish the back 9 because I just got that. There's a chance that I might do that again, you know. So, but most of it is just hitting the ball to the right and to the left and being out and trying to, you know, avoid like wildlife from trying to find your ball and all that stuff. It's the same thing in startups. It's like most of the time you're just getting your ass kicked. It's not pretty.
No, it's not. Jim and I actually joke about that a lot. Is like when we have a shitty thing, like, I don't know, when something sucks, as is the common stance is like, Instagram lied to us. They never showed us this shit about starting a business. This is not pictures of me standing next to my Ferrari with a couple of supermodels. This is actual work, and it's hard work. Yeah. And the other thing, I have another friend of mine who says that you can't do a business for the money, because if the money goes away, then you don't care about the business anymore.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like people typically, most people want to try to start a business either for money or because they don't want to work for somebody.
Right.
And most of the time the money's not there, and you wind up working for literally everybody. Like, for me on the onset, it was like creators. It was content creators that basically they became my new boss. Like I'm doing reporting for them. I'm answering them about things like, everybody else becomes the boss when you actually own the company.
Yeah.
Which is really an interesting way to think about it. And those are the two reasons people started. And those are the two things that you almost never hit.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, as a shameless self-promoter that I am, on one of my Facebook pages, which is called Startup Diary,
Great page, by the way.
I'm chronicling my project that I'm doing with my family. So I've challenged them. We're calling it the $100 Startup Challenge. So I challenged everyone in my family. I'm giving everybody $100, and we have the whole summer to build something, like build a startup of some sort, or they could even invest it. Like they could. My wife is thinking about investing hers as her way of growing it. So, but the goal is to basically grow $100 as much as possible by the end of the summer. And I plan on kicking their asses. Honestly, I'm not going to take any things on it. And I'm actually chronicling what I'm doing. So if you get on Startup, for people who are interested in it, I'm showing you a lot of what I'm doing right now to build that part up. It's really interesting because with $100, you really can't advertise.
No.
I mean, because you got to build, I had to build a website. So on the website, I think I spent $27 so far.
So that's a quarter of it right there.
Yeah. So it was $17 for the domain, and it's $350 a month with the hosting. And so, yeah, basically it's $27 for the 3 months. So I'm having to get really, I just had my first sales call on that actually on Friday. So it should be interesting. I'm having to do old-fashioned sales, not even running ads.
Boiler room.
Yeah, it's kind of cool actually. I was like, I feel nostalgic right now. This is kind of fun. So
that's a really good. I didn't know you were doing that. I'm gonna check that out, and I dropped the link to it for everybody there. That's really
nice.
Cool. It's cool that you're getting your family involved in it too. Like I imagine that makes all of this easier if they're participants. Like again, I don't have a family, so I'm just guessing. But
it's awesome. I mean, they're learning. I mean, even with the school, we have this private school, and we all chip in that school, which is really interesting. They're seeing firsthand how we, had to really. So this is a really interesting story because you asked about how I quit and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit that job, and about 2 or 3 months into that, in about March or so. This is gonna sound crazy, so don't think I'm crazy, everybody out there. If this is not your bag or whatever. But I was praying in the morning, right? That's what I do every morning. I pray, and I felt like an incredibly strong feeling during that time that I was supposed to start a school. And I was like, I don't want to start a school. I don't even really like kids that much at all. Actually, I like my kids, but I really don't.
Come visit Ron's school.
And so on top of that, I was like, I just quit my job. I can't afford to start a school either. I just can't do it. But I really felt like that was what I was supposed to be doing. And so I did that. Told my wife. Actually, I didn't even tell my wife. I wasn't going to tell my wife because I didn't want to do it. And that same day, later, I was in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she texted me and said she wanted to start a school.
Wow.
Can you believe that, dude? We weren't talking about this. This was not on our radar. It's nothing that I wanted to do. And that happened that morning. And then that afternoon, she texted me and said, and that's when I was like, okay, I got to do this. And so I say all that because I think it's really important to see for your kids and even your friends, just to see what it is to just listen to your gut and do what you think you're supposed to be doing in the best possible way that you do it, max effort style, And that was it. We had to come up with, about $40,000 basically to get this school started, as just the startup money,
right? That
we didn't have. I told you, at that point in the game, I was not sure how I was gonna even pay for little things, let alone plop it down for the school and all that stuff. But again, we came together as a family, and we're like, we're all going to run this, and they were totally part of it. They still are. It's awesome. So they're going to come out of this. By the time my kids are adults, like they're going to be like, they're going to be running circles around us, like around guys like you and me, dude. They're going to be just crushing it. So
anyway. That's amazing. Like you're giving them those skills at a young age. I'd like to think if I ever had children, I would do the same thing.
Oh.
And you say that like it was I don't want to say divinely, but it was.
It was. I mean, for me, it was. Like you may not buy into that or whatever. So I get that. Like I'm not going to like evangelize on this thing or anything like that. But for me, it was divine.
Well, what I was going to say was that I even though I'm not of the same faith, I do say at the end of every one of these that it's your obligation to offer the best, to be the best version of yourself for the world. And I think that's kind of the same thing you're saying, is that if you have something that you can do, you kind of have an obligation to do it for the people that it can help. And that's why I'm never ashamed to sell anything, is that I feel that I have created good things that can help people, and that by not offering it to them, I'm not doing my job as a good person to present what I have to offer to the world, Yeah.
I mean, not just, and I know that you know this, but it's not just offering it. It's like, that is a mantra in our house. It's just max effort. Like, it's not even just offering it or just doing it. It's going like all freaking in. It's like pushing the chips in, and it's just relentless. You got to go as hard. That's the way we do things in our house. It's like we go as hard as we possibly can. Yeah,
and there's like a thing in society where you're almost supposed to be like ashamed of your own things and not present yourself. For example, sometimes people will ask me what the best SEO training is, and I'll say it's mine. And like they're like, oh, of course you're going to say that about yours. Like, you're damn right. Of course I'm going to say that about mine. I would be doing a disservice to the people that have invested their time and money and effort into me to say that no, actually somebody else has a better training. Like, why would I be ashamed of that?
I will say this though. My wife and I were having a little lunch before this call, and she asked kind of what your deal was. Like, who are you? And I was like, oh, he's an SEO guy, he's a marketing guy, and all that stuff. I was like, but you know what? He kind of runs circles around me in the SEO part. Like you are a legend in SEO, dude. Like, I was telling her a story about how I was in a meeting here in Dallas. This is probably about a year ago, and I can't remember the context of why it was brought up, but a guy that I was meeting with brought your name up.
Wow, I think I remember you telling me that, but I'd forgotten about that.
So yeah, it was really interesting because he like just thought you were like this legend, right? And I'm like, oh, that's my boy, dude. That was pretty awesome for me to.
Me too. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm narcissistic enough to take that to enjoy that. But
so if I was asked that same question, I would not say me. I'd say call Chris. Like,
but that's not something you offer. Like, if somebody were to ask you what's the best streaming service for independent content, there's no way you're going to say anything but your own.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And there's no reason to think that. And like, for some reason, a lot of people in our culture think that there is, and there's not. Like, you have a moral obligation to make the best possible product or service that you have and offer it to as many people as it can benefit as possible. And I don't know why people feel ashamed of that. So enough on that. Okay, Jim says, what's your favorite lesson you've ever taken away from what most people would consider a failure?
Oh, is that asking me or you?
You.
Asking me? Okay, so this is really interesting. Because I actually had this conversation recently with the director of the film that I'm producing. And so, I had mentioned that we were talking about how hard it is. It's hard for me to actually hire somebody, right? Like, I've tried to hire people. I outsource a lot, but to actually like hire a W-2 employee or bring on a co-founder on anything or whatever else, it's really hard for me to trust after that first startup with that guy that I mentioned who wound up just, being pretty unstable. And because I didn't see it coming. Like, I was legitimately good friends. I was legit with the two eyes friends with that guy before we started it. And he was a smart guy and all that stuff. So I did not see what was coming in terms of how destructive he was going to wind up being. And I've been really gun shy to work with people. for reasons that are that, and then also just because they don't tend to work as hard as I do. So I was having this conversation with him though about being burned in the past, but looking at it as a real positive, because I put my heart and soul into that company with him, and we started to actually make money in it and all that other stuff. All the hard things that don't happen for most startups, we were doing that, and it's hard enough to actually start a company, but we kind of ended because of friendly fire, which is just insane, right?
Yeah.
But it led. Like, if he hadn't asked me on that Saturday afternoon to do that dumb startup with him, and for me to pour myself into learning how to run a business and all that other stuff, and growing it and then failing with it, like, I wouldn't have started the next thing, because I met the people who basically prompted me to get into this business through that business. And through that business, through Stream Now, I wound up licensing some content from a filmmaker who now I'm producing a film with. That is, dude, like Top Gun, Maverick's about to come out, and they just showed that footage of them flying really low over the crew and all that stuff. I don't know if you've seen that; it's awesome. Mm-hmm. But like, we just did our own. We have more access to F-16 fighter jets for this thing than that piece of trash that Tom Cruise is about to put out. No, I'm just joking. I can't wait to see that movie, actually. But I am adding him at this because we're coming hard after. Like, this is a big deal. Like, this film is a big deal, and I would have. There's no way I would be doing that if it wasn't for that failure with that numbnut co-founder that I was talking about initially. Like, I just wouldn't be here.
Right.
I might be pushing paper in that office still, probably. So.
Yeah, I like to reflect on those tiny little moments that, like, had that one little thing, had I not responded to that one message or whatever, it changed everything. Like, all of this started for me when I was in some credit card debt, and I needed to make a little money, and I was bored at my day job, and I went to an old wrestling blog that I used to read and found that it was no longer there. There was just a one page of what the owner of it was doing then, and he was talking about how he had made some money. He was making all his money now doing something called affiliate marketing. And I started researching that, and that led to one course, and that led to the Get Rid of Cable site, and that led to me doing one tiny. If I'd been doing my job that day instead of screwing around on the internet, everything would have changed over the last 6 years. So.
Or, dude, even go back one step further than that. If you hadn't racked up that dumbass credit card debt.
Yeah. So I do have some things to thank my ex-wife for.
I mean, isn't that interesting? Like, even the stuff you mess up on, like, that can be some of the most impactful stuff that you can do in your life.
Yeah, and I guess the summary there is that you never know what's going to lead to what. So just make the best decision you can with the information you have available at the time. Take opportunities when they present themselves, and like, work hard. The harder you work, the luckier that you'll get. So,
yeah, and learn. Like, that's something that I think I saw in one of your videos like years ago. Was like how, you just said, so you started this SEO business, but you wound up like spending a fair amount of money. Like, to you, it was a lot of money at the time, for sure. I think. Was for some course or some master class or something like that.
Yeah, and, Source Phoenix. It was a $997 course.
Yeah, like, if you're swimming in debt and trying to start a company, that $1,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah,
and you took a chance to educate yourself. I'm not saying that everybody out there should go spend money to educate them. You can find most of this information or most information about almost anything. Like, I fixed a BMW air conditioner a couple years ago from watching YouTube. So like, you can learn almost anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can learn it for free. It's a little harder to learn for free, but you can learn for free even.
Right.
So educate yourselves. Learn all the time.
This is for you. It says, what's your suggestion for a 24-year-old? Focus on one or multiple startups.
So I would say, focus on one, and I actually did a video about this not that long ago called the Halo Effect. So I say focus on one build it and see what you can sort of put in the peripheral of that company. So for me, as we talked about on here, I started the streaming company, but it spawned off into this marketing company that I get to brand as Stream Now Creative or whatever. So it's still kind of branded with all that stuff. But there's a lot of halo stuff around there that you can take from what you're doing in that one startup, and slowly, as you get good at one thing at least, but slowly start to roll some of that stuff out. Because if it's worth it to you, if you're doing something and it's worth it to you, somebody else will pay for it. And so that's the way I look at it. In fact, I'm doing this app right now, and I learned some new tricks as I'm building this out. And I've been calling people this morning saying, like, how can I make money off of what I just learned here? One example is there's for our production team, we're using something called Studio Binder, which is kind of a production. It's almost like a CRM, but for production. Like it's, it has scripts in there and all that stuff, and call sheets and, scheduling and all that stuff. I'm like, shit, I might be able to build that out. So I was like, how many people do we know that pay? Because we pay $300 a month for Studio Binder. And so I was like, how many people do we know that are actually doing that? That's a conversation I had today. So I'd say focus on one thing and let that kind of spawn out as you learn and get a good grasp on the things that you're using to build that company.
Awesome.
And label it, right? So if it's Unez Industries or whatever, like everything should be Unez something. Like, there's some value to the name, right? So slap the name on there too.
Jim says, how old were you when you realized you had the entrepreneurial spirit?
When I was in college, I started the first thing I ever started. It was called Chapter One Productions, and we were throwing fashion shows and art shows. We were representing fashion designers and painters, basically. We'd take half of whatever the painters made, and that's how, or the dwarf or whatever for these fashion shows, and that's how we put ourselves through school. And so I guess it was even before I would even call myself a real adult. I knew I wanted to. I just like doing things. So I'd rather just do things I'm interested in than spectate, I guess. And so,
all right.
So yeah.
I think that says, were you into filmmaking and stuff before you started this business, or you just thought that this might work and just went on with it?
Yeah. So you would ask if you missed anything, and that was one part we discussed, is how I started this. But no, I don't have any background, any film school or anything like that. I had worked in healthcare finance essentially since like 2003, and so, but it was some filmmakers asking me to help them do some projects. I guess they kind of like my business mind or something. I don't know what they saw in me, but they kept asking me, and so that's when I just decided to try it. And we failed pretty miserably, so I just decided to start my own company.
Awesome. Jim says the ability to turn a negative into a positive is absolutely one of the key factors in successful people.
Can't disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I'm telling you, almost anybody could probably go back from anything that they're happy with in their lives and go back to some failure as sort of a impetus. So that'd be a fun game to do. That'd be a fun dinner party game. Like, let's take it like the one thing that you're really good at or really happy with in your life, and let's start tracking that back to failure. That's it. I'm gonna have a dinner party now.
Yeah, like
a socially distant. Don't worry.
Jim and I talk about that a lot, that one of the better strengths you can have is to make lemonade out of lemons, and he gives me crap for that now because he realizes I don't actually make lemonade. But I agree. I think that's a very important strength to have. Wasis says, damn, I'm really late to going to have to rewatch later. Sorry, was just arguing with the terrible Bluehost support. All right. Wasis says, 3 people on YouTube haven't liked the stream. What are you waiting for? Wasis is always like our cheerleader on these things. So let me go back and go ahead and we are actually pretty much time up. It's been an hour. Do you have anything you'd like to say or share or pimp or whatever?
Hey, I'm really happy that everybody, I'm really grateful everybody that got on. I'm grateful to you for having me on. I haven't done anything like this in a while, any interviews or anything. So It's pretty fun. Check out Startup Diary. Check out ronvalderrama.com if there's anything I can help out with. You can book strategy sessions there. And that's pretty much it.
All right, let me drop that in the chat as well.
Let's see if you can spell it.
The second R is what was messing me up as I was preparing for this. And so I always check.
The good thing when your name's Ron Valderrama is the domain's available. ronvalderrama.com.
Yeah, there's a dude that's had chriswalker.com for like 20 years, and it's a single one-page website with a guy that plays the trumpet. And it's just that and his email address. And I've offered him hundreds of dollars to build him a new site, and he never even responds.
Yep.
So,
not a big line for ronvalderrama.com.
and like, not to beat this subject to death, but like, there's a few minor celebrities named Chris Walker, so I've had to brand myself as Chris M. Walker because of that. And there's even some Christopher Walkers. So like,
that's right.
Thanks, Mom.
There it is.
All right, guys. Let's see. Gene says hi. Jim says one of my favorite streams. Thanks, Ron.
Oh, nice, awesome.
Jean says she loves Stream Now.
Fair.
This is Jean Sarandos Rob. And there's ronvalderrama.com. Check it out. If, I'm sure he can help you out and be glad to. Appreciate you taking the time out to do this. I know you're very busy, so I'm glad that you could squeeze us in. And maybe we'll do this again sometime. So
yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot.
As for everybody else, on Wednesday, I'll have some sort of live stream. It'll be me, probably just myself. Then Friday, we'll have something about freelancing. And then on Monday, we will be back with Rohindwa again. So look forward to that. So thanks a lot, guys. Figure out what you want out of life and go out and get it because you owe it yourself and you owe it to the world. Peace.